In Umudike village, there was one thing nobody argued about. Okoro would never refuse food. Not if he was full, not if he had just eaten, not if the food was not even his favorite. If it was edible, Okoro was available. He was 38 years old, strong arms from farming, wide chest, loud voice, the kind of man who laughed before the joke finished. He lived alone in a small compound near the edge of the village, not because he could not marry, but because he claimed he was not ready to share space. People believed him, but the truth was simpler. Okoro loved comfort, and comfort to him meant food without interruption. He farmed yam and cassava, enough to survive, not enough to be called wealthy. He was not lazy, he worked, but when it came to eating, discipline disappeared. If a neighbor cooked outside, Okoro would pass accidentally. If there was a ceremony...
Good day, I'm here to help.
Welcome, Okoro. We need more bowls.
I'll get them for you.
Thank you, brother.
Here you are.
If meat was shared equally, his portion somehow looked heavier. He had mastered the art of adjusting portions without anyone seeing the adjustment. Children laughed when he passed. Hide your meat! Women shook their heads. Men clapped his back.
One day your stomach will betray you. My stomach and I understand each other.
That was his mistake. He thought appetite was harmless. He did not know appetite becomes dangerous when it stops respecting boundaries. Festival season was his favorite time of year. Cooking increased, distraction increased, opportunities increased. The new yam festival was approaching. Drums were repaired, palm wine was prepared, yam barns were opened for inspection. But before celebration came sacrifice. It had always been that way. The goat chosen for the gods had to be strong and spotless. That year's goat was magnificent, wide, well-fed, almost arrogant in posture. When they brought it to the village square for inspection, people admired it respectfully. Okoro admired it differently. He circled it once, twice. He said nothing, but he calculated. He imagined how much meat it carried. He imagined pepper soup thick and steaming. He imagined roasted ribs. He swallowed. A small voice inside him said, "This one is not for you." Another voice replied, "It is still meat." He walked away that day, but the image followed him. That night, as he lay on his mat, he could not sleep easily. The goat's size replayed in his mind. He told himself he was foolish. It belonged to the gods. Nobody touched what belonged to the gods. Nobody. Yet, in the quiet of his compound, hunger and imagination began whispering to each other. And when appetite begins whispering, it rarely stays quiet for long. The morning, the goat was taken to the shrine. The whole village followed, not because they were curious, because tradition demanded witness. The chief priest walked in front, white chalk marking his forehead. Elders followed. Young men carried the rope. Women stayed at a respectful distance. The goat walked calmly, too calmly, as if it knew it was important. Okoro stood among the crowd, hands behind his back, face serious, eyes calculating. The chief priest stopped before the shrine.
This goat is not meat. It is covenant. It is not hunger. It is sacrifice. It is not for men. It is for the gods.
The rope was tied firmly to the sacred tree beside the shrine. White chalk was drawn on the ground. Palm wine was poured. Incantations were spoken. The warning was repeated. Whoever touches what belongs to the gods will not know peace. People nodded. Okoro nodded too. He even murmured, like a concerned citizen. But his eyes never left the goat. When the ceremony ended, the crowd dispersed slowly. The goat remained tied at the shrine to stay there until the ritual at dawn. Children were warned again, do not go near it. As evening fell, the village settled. Cooking fires dimmed. Drums quieted. Night insects took over. Okoro sat in his compound, eating roasted yam. It tasted like nothing. He swallowed without enjoyment. His mind was elsewhere. He told himself to sleep. He lay down, turned left, turned right, closed his eyes, opened them again. The goat appeared in his thoughts, fat, healthy, unwatched. He sat up. This is madness, he muttered to himself. He stood, paced his compound once, then sat again. It belongs to the gods. Silence answered him. Gods don't eat, another thought whispered. He stood up sharply, as if to shake the idea away. He walked to the gate of his compound and stopped. He looked toward the shrine's direction. Dark, quiet. He listened carefully. No footsteps, no voices, just night. His heart began to beat faster. Not from fear, from excitement. He stepped out. Each step felt louder than it was. He kept to the side path, avoiding the main road. When he reached the shrine clearing, the moonlight made everything look unreal. The goat stood where it had been tied, alive, still, waiting. Okoro swallowed. This is wrong, he whispered. The goat shifted slightly. The rope looked easy to untie. He waited. Nothing happened. No thunder, no voice from the sky, no chief priest appearing from nowhere. Just silence. Okoro looked up. Forgive me, he said casually. Then he untied the rope. The goat resisted slightly, but he held it firmly. He moved quickly, leading it away from the shrine, avoiding dry leaves and broken branches. Every few steps he paused to listen. Still silence. When he reached the back of his compound, he did not hesitate. He walked fast, efficient, experienced. By the time the moon shifted position, the goat was no longer a goat. It was meat, well hidden. Before sleeping, he washed thoroughly. He lay down with a small smile.
Nothing
You
happened.
see, he whispered to himself, nothing happened. At dawn, the village gathered for the ritual. The rope was there, the goat was not. The silence that followed was heavier than noise. The chief priest stepped forward slowly. He did not shout. He did not accuse. He raised his staff and spoke calmly.
Whoever has taken what belongs to the gods, your stomach will not rest until it is returned.
A wind passed through the clearing. People murmured nervously. Okoro stood among them, calm, collected, serious. Then something inside his belly moved, small, uninvited. He pressed his stomach casually. It stopped. He exhaled. Then it moved again. Not pain, not hunger. Movement, slow, rhythmic. Okoro's smile faded. For the first time in his life, his stomach was not asking for food. It was doing something else entirely. And this time, it was not under his control. They had not struck him. At first, Okoro told himself it was nothing. Indigestion. Too much pepper. Maybe the meat had been heavy. He woke that morning with confidence. Nothing had happened during the night. No thunder, no strange dreams, no spiritual attack. He almost laughed at the chief priest's warning. But as he stood up from his mat, his stomach shifted. Not a growl, not gas, shifted. Like something inside adjusted position. He froze. It stopped. He exhaled slowly. Foolish imagination, he muttered. He stepped outside to wash his face. As he bent down, his belly rolled, side to side, softly. Once, twice. He straightened quickly. It stopped. Okoro stood still, breathing carefully. Control yourself, he whispered, to his own stomach. Nothing happened. He relaxed. Maybe it truly was nothing. He went about his morning like usual. Fetched water, swept small dust, pretended everything was normal. But pretending does not control the body. When he reached the village square later that morning, men were already discussing the missing goat. Voices were tense. This has never happened before. It is an insult. The gods must be angry.
Okoro joined the circle carefully. "Yes," he said loudly, "wickedness has entered this village." As he spoke, his stomach bounced. Not violently, but visibly. The man standing beside him paused. "Are you cold?" the man asked. Okoro forced a laugh. "Why would I be cold?" His stomach moved again. A small shake. This time, someone else noticed. "Okoro," another man said slowly, "are you all right?" "Perfectly fine," he replied quickly. Then his belly rolled in a slow, circular motion. Not a cramp, a rhythm, like a drum testing itself. The men stepped back slightly. One of them burst out laughing. "Ha! Your stomach is greeting the gods!" The others laughed too. Okoro laughed louder than all of them. He slapped his own belly jokingly. "Behave yourself," he said playfully. It stopped for a moment. The discussion continued. The chief priest walked into the square. The laughter reduced immediately. His eyes scanned the crowd. When his gaze passed over Okoro, the belly moved again. Stronger. Left, right, forward, back. This time, there was no hiding it. Someone pointed. "See!" All eyes turned. Okoro's belly was no longer shifting. It was dancing. Not violently, but clearly. A steady rhythm under his wrapper. The square went silent. Okoro's heart began to race. "Stop!" he whispered under his breath. It did not stop. He pressed both hands against it. It pushed back. The chief priest did not speak. He only watched. That silence was worse than accusation. Okoro tried to sit down. The moment he bent his knees, his stomach began moving faster. Up, down, side to side. The rhythm changed. Now it looked intentional, like celebration. Laughter erupted from one corner of the square. Children began chanting mockingly, "Okoro's belly! Okoro's belly!" His face burned. He stood upright immediately. The movement slowed, but did not stop. He forced another laugh. "It is gas. Too much yam last night." Nobody fully believed him, but nobody accused him either. Yet, the chief priest finally spoke. "Gas does not dance in rhythm." The words landed quietly. Okoro felt sweat gather behind his neck. He took one step backward. His stomach rolled again. More dramatic this time. Even he could feel the pattern. It was not random. It was deliberate. He left the square abruptly. People parted for him, half amused, half unsettled. As he walked home quickly, the movement increased. Every few steps, his belly bounced. Once, he tried running. That made it worse. By the time he reached his compound, he was breathing heavily. He locked his gate, stood alone, pressed both hands firmly against his stomach. "Enough!" he snapped. It responded by shaking twice, slowly, mockingly. Okoro felt something he had not felt in a long time. Fear. Not of hunger, not of men. Of exposure. The chief priest's voice echoed in his memory. "Your stomach will not know peace." That night, as he tried to sleep, his stomach moved again. Not violently, just enough to remind him. The gods had not shouted. They had not struck him. They had chosen something worse. They had chosen embarrassment. And this was only the beginning.
By the fourth day, Okoro realized something. The movement was not random. It had pattern. It did not dance when he was alone and silent. It reacted. That morning, he woke up carefully. He stayed still on his mat. No movement. He sat up slowly. Still nothing. Hope rose inside him. Maybe it had ended. Maybe the gods had changed their mind. He stood and stretched. Nothing happened. He smiled. So it was gas, he muttered confidently.
Gas.
He stepped outside. The sun was bright. The air was calm. For the first time in days, his stomach felt quiet. He almost laughed. Then he heard it. Two women passing his compound. Have you heard? One whispered. They say the gods are already showing signs. The other replied. The person will not escape. Okoro's heart skipped. His stomach tightened slightly. Not dancing, just tightening. He pressed it. It settled. He walked toward the square, trying to look normal. Men were already gathered. The goat discussion had not died down. This is serious matter, someone said. If the thief does not return it, worse will happen. Okoro cleared his throat loudly. Yes, he said quickly. That person is wicked. The moment the word wicked left his mouth, his stomach gave one sharp jerk. Not a dance, a single movement. Enough for the man beside him to notice. You are still not well? The man asked. I am fine, Okoro snapped too quickly. It happened again. One small roll. The men looked at each other. Not laughing this time, watching. Okoro felt sweat gather on his back. He tried changing the topic. Maybe strangers passed through the village, he suggested. The moment he shifted blame, his stomach twisted. This time longer. Deliberate. He grabbed it instinctively. The chief priest entered the square. The atmosphere changed immediately. Nobody joked when he was around. He stopped in the center. The gods are patient, he said calmly, but they are precise. Silence followed. Okoro avoided his eyes. Then the priest added, the stomach is where greed lives. Okoro's stomach moved. Slow. Visible. Not wild, just enough. The priest did not point, did not accuse. He simply looked at Okoro for a second too long and walked away. The square remained quiet. Nobody laughed now. Nobody clapped. They had stopped seeing comedy. They were seeing confirmation. Okoro left early that day. Back in his compound, he tested something. He spoke out loud. I did not take the goat. Nothing happened. He repeated it. I did not take it. Still nothing. Hope flickered. Then he added, and whoever did will suffer. His stomach tightened sharply. Not a dance, a warning. He froze. That was when he understood. The curse was not for entertainment. It was for truth. It reacted when he lied. It reacted when he shifted blame. It reacted when the goat was mentioned. It was listening. That night, he avoided all conversation. He did not go to the square. He did not greet anyone. He stayed indoors, quiet. And for most of the night, his stomach stayed still. But just before sleep took him, it gave one slow roll. Gentle, almost playful, as if to remind him, I am not finished with you. By the 5th day, laughter had reduced. That was worse. When people laugh at you, you can hide inside humor. When they stop laughing, it means they are thinking. Okoro noticed it. Children no longer chanted about his belly. Women stopped whispering loudly. Men watched him differently, measured, waiting. He avoided the square completely. He avoided mentioning the goat. He avoided speaking too much. And strangely, the stomach remained mostly calm. That was when hope became dangerous. Maybe, he told himself, if I just keep quiet, it will fade. He even tried eating normally again. The first meal went down without movement. The second too. Confidence returned. The gods only wanted to warn me, he reasoned. That night, he made a decision. He would fix everything quietly. He still had the bones buried behind his compound. He had hidden them deep, thinking nobody would ever find them. He did not plan to confess publicly. That would destroy his reputation. No, he would return what was left silently. The gods did not need announcement. They just needed balance. That was what he told himself. The moon was high when he dug up the bones. He wrapped them in cloth carefully. His heart beat fast, but not from fear,
from strategy. If I return this, he whispered, everything will end. He walked toward the shrine slowly. The village slept. Even the insects sounded softer. When he reached the sacred tree clearing, he paused. The sacred tree stood still. The rope still hung there, reminder of insult. Okoro swallowed. This is small matter, he muttered. He stepped forward, and immediately his stomach tightened. Not dancing, not rolling, tight, like a fist. He froze. He waited. Nothing. He stepped again. The tightness increased. He dropped the wrapped bones at the base of the tree. Take it, he whispered quickly. We are settled. He turned to leave. The moment his back faced the shrine, his stomach jerked violently. Once, hard enough to bend him forward. He gasped. It tightened again. Stronger. He dropped to one knee. No, he whispered. The message was clear. The gods did not want quiet settlement. They wanted truth. Okoro staggered back to his feet and hurried away from the shrine. With every step away, his stomach rolled once. Slow, deliberate, mocking. By the time he reached his compound, the movement had returned. Not full dance, but steady rhythm. As if disappointed. The chief priest announced a cleansing gathering, not a festival, not a celebration, a gathering. When Mudike called for cleansing, everyone attended. No excuse, no absence. The square filled slowly that afternoon. Elders sat in front, women stood behind, children were kept at a distance. The air felt heavier than usual. Okoro arrived late. He had considered not coming, but absence would scream louder than guilt. He walked into the square with controlled steps, head high, face steady, stomach quiet, for now. The chief priest stood in the center.
The gods are patient, but patience is not weakness. The goat that was taken has been returned, but truth has not.
A murmur moved through the crowd. Okoro swallowed. His stomach remained still. Hope rose again. Maybe if he stood calmly, nothing would happen. Maybe silence could still save him. The priest raised his staff slightly. The thief believes darkness hides him, he said, but the gods see through skin. The word struck like stone. Okoro felt heat rise from his stomach upward. Not movement, heat. The priest stepped forward. Today, the gods will not wait. The square went quiet. Too quiet. Then it happened. Not a small roll. Not a subtle shift. Okoro's stomach lifted sharply once. He gasped. It stopped. Then it began. Slow. Deliberate. Left. Right. Forward. Back. The rhythm was steady. Controlled. Like a drum beat at a funeral. All eyes locked on him. Nobody laughed. Nobody spoke. The movement grew stronger. His wrapper shifted visibly. Okoro pressed both hands against his belly.
Stop!
Stop, he whispered. It did not stop. The chief priest's voice cut through the silence. What belongs to the gods cannot be digested by men. The rhythm increased. Now it was undeniable. Not illness, not coincidence, not gas. The belly was answering. Sweat ran down Okoro's face. He tried stepping backward. The moment he moved, the belly shook harder, almost violently. He stumbled, fell to one knee. The square gasped. Still, nobody laughed. This was no longer comedy. It was judgment. Confess, the priest said calmly. Okoro shook his head weakly. He began. The belly jerked sharply. He cried out. The pain was not sharp. It was humiliation. Public. Unavoidable. Precise.
I took it! I took the goat! I killed it. I buried the bones. I thought.
He admitted finally. Silence. The belly stopped. Not slowly. Immediately. The sudden stillness felt heavier than the movement. Okoro remained kneeling, breathing hard. The chief priest stepped closer. Greed is not hunger, he said quietly. It is disrespect. He turned to the elders. The gods have heard truth. Then he looked at Okoro one last time. Your stomach will be still, he declared, but your name will not. A low murmur passed through the crowd. The cleansing ritual was completed. Palm wine was poured, incantations spoken, ash placed on the shrine. But the real cleansing had already happened. Public truth. Okoro stood slowly. His stomach felt normal, calm, empty. But the weight in his chest was heavier than any curse. People did not insult him. They did not beat him. They simply stepped aside as he walked home. Space. That was his punishment. Space where laughter used to be. That night, he tried to eat. He lifted the first bite of food. His stomach remained still. But something else moved inside him. Shame. For the first time in his life, food did not comfort him. It reminded him. And in Umudike, long after the drums of that year faded, one warning remained. If you steal from men, you may hide. If you steal from the gods, your own body will testify.